I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Kodiak Island Borough Assembly work session for Thursday, July 25th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and we are in the Assembly chambers. First item is citizens' comments. This is local number is 907-486-3231 and the toll-free number is 855-492-9202. And anybody wishing to come forward under citizens' comments, please do so at this time. Sandra, you're on the agenda next.
We're good. They told me to keep it down to less than an hour.
I hope so. So, yeah, so after citizens' comments, then we'll get in there on it. So, Patrick. There we go.
Hi there. Thank you for all that you guys do. It's a really tough job. It really is. I'm here not only to speak for myself, but also to speak for my dog, Mexico. Mexico loves Island Trails Network a lot. Mexico thinks that everything that Island Trails Network has done has been outstanding, and I have to wholeheartedly agree. And this, the short trail that's coming up, I understand there's a huge, wonderful wave of contagious, much-needed support that's going through the community, and I hope that the borough jumps on board as well and catches the fever. Thank you.
Thank you. Any phone calls? None. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda items. Oh, go ahead.
I don't move fast enough.
No, you don't.
Good evening, Borough Assembly, and my name is Brian Humblin, longtime resident of the Kodiak Archipelago. I would like to voice my strong support for the Island Trails Network request to the borough. As you may know, this is a very in-depth project. The proposal is what I would think is quite nicely done. I looked at the packet that the city had provided, and there are over two dozen letters of support. Now, I've written proposals before to funding agencies. I wish I would have gotten 25 letters of support. Maybe I would have been a little bit more successful. I think it shows broad acceptance of this quality of life, safety issue, recreational adventure, also possible economic benefit by making another alternative route between the airport and the ferry terminal. It's on the agenda, so I believe the others on Island Trails Network will provide you some of the background. I think it's really important that the borough steps up and at least matches the city's contribution. I believe, if I read the map correctly, more than half of the presumed Kodiak Short Trail will be on borough lands. So I think it's really important that the borough steps up as a nice partnership and kind of a positive between the city council and the borough assembly. It'd be nice to see that kind of partnership. Two other things. I would strongly support your decision on nonprofits. The nonprofit organizations in this community do an enormous amount of work that is not done by the city or the borough. They rely on contributions so that they can match funds that they request from federal and state agencies. So it's really important that you keep that funding coming to these organizations. And then finally, under the funding scholarships, I strongly support the borough providing very small amounts of funding for the anniversary of the MV Testamina, the AML conference, and the Kodiak Economic Development Corporation. I think it's really important that the borough shows through funding that you are committed to these kinds of ventures. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward and speak under citizens' comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda for discussion is discuss Island Trails Network request for support for the Kodiak Short Trail.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Assembly members.
I don't think it's on, Sandra.
I got lights.
Good.
Hello, Mayor, Assembly members, clerks, acting managers, acting official. Right on. We would like to ask for some money and some support. We don't have a dollar number right now. We know that your budget has already been done. But, you know, a good faith effort of asking. There'll be more opportunities down the road because we are going really well, and we want to see this go further. We put in for a grant. I'm going to give you that in a little bit, but we want to thank you for your support and for this chance, you know, to hear us. And we thank you for the work on Sultry Cove. And what we'd really like to do is get on the CIP list. And I noticed on the website that there is a form to fill out to get on the CIP list. So that would be a big help as we go further on to be able to talk about the fact that we're on your capital improvement project list. So this trail is actually part of the Borough Comprehensive Plan 2008 to put in a separated bike path, pedestrian multi-use path all the way out to flats. I want to update you the history, the current plan going forth. When they decided to put in millions of dollars in the Coast Guard housing, we decided that's really hard on those people. First, they're a displaced people group, and then we put them isolated area where they can't get to all the benefits that they have on base without using a vehicle. When I used to live there, many families had one car. So we worked with that. We tried that. We were doing pretty well. We met with the DOT, and they told us it was time to learn about grants versus shovels and wheelbarrows that we're really good with. And this grant that we just applied for came forth. It's the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program. It's a federal grant with the Federal Highway Administration. It's expected to continue to have funding for many years. And we know that there's going to be communities all across the country that are going to get bike paths funded. And we want Kodiak to be one of those. We have garnered actually 27 letters of support if you put the whole congressional delegation as one letter. Otherwise, we have 30 letters of support. We have 2 letters of cooperation from the federal landowners. All this was requirements that we had to do for the grant application. The Alaska, I just didn't know if you knew all this history, so I want to fill you in. The Alaska DOT has stepped forward to be the lead applicant, because as a nonprofit, and you know, as a mom, we're not eligible, but DOT says we want to be the lead applicant on this. ITN and the Shunak Tribe of Kodiak are both implementing partners for the application. I want to talk a little bit about the match, because we've been told that the match is really giving us a lot of strength in this application. Initially, we asked the city for the entire 20% of the match, which was roughly $250,000. But we weren't sure we were going to get there on time because we're in the learning process. And any tips, advice, snide remarks, all welcome. We want to learn. So then we asked the state DOT at the same time, and we heard that the state had said no. We're not doing any match at this time. We're not making any match requests. But then we began to receive local support, all right, from citizens of Kodiak who committed $1,000 here, $2,000 there. And when we told Alaska DOT that we were getting this, they were very encouraged, and we ended up with $22,614 in local match. And we heard that the local commitments was what tipped the scale for DOT. And so within 24 hours of the city approving the match, the state came through with the match. So we were able to reduce both of theirs by half. Our match is at 23% right now, which is the most powerful match for this application. 20% is minimum, but we got it up to 23%. Yeah, I know that I didn't give you a lot in your packet. I gave you some of the benefits of the trail. I know Brian talked about the economic benefits, which I didn't put in there, and we can definitely give more background on the opportunities for economic benefits. One of the things I think that's always blown my mind, or at least it has in the last 6 months, Canada put a trail all the way across the country, Trans-Canada Trail. And they did research. We've been asked the question, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? How good is this? Is this going to work? And they did their studies. I mean, I'm not going to argue with their studies. We can cut them in half and it would still be incredibly beneficial. But it's a little moving to see that they're considering that they are going to save $63 million in avoided mental health care and $619 million in avoided absenteeism costs. But then it kind of blew my mind because they went to $1.7 billion in avoided health care costs. So, our town, our people, these are our people. And I think that it would be a great benefit to the people to have a nice trail to work on that would be safe. Who else wants to speak?
Where are we in the 10 minutes?
No, you can
We
continue.
have time.
Okay. I'll do a quick thing on maintenance.
Yeah, we wanted to leave a little time for questions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the issues that comes up is...
For the record, state your name, Eric.
Of course.
Thank
My
you.
name is Eric Linscheid. I'm a
Thank
board
you.
member of ITN. So one of the questions that comes up is maintenance, and what we have been told working with HDR Engineering, who we hired to write the grant, the ATIP grant, is that this is a process that gets discussed in the planning process. So this grant is only going to take care of 30% of planning of this trail. So there's a lot of unknowns out there. We get that. But the whole reason you start, and we have the 30% for planning, is to try to start answering all those questions if we receive the grant. And then the next phase is to go to approximately 70%, and then the next phase is actually going into construction. So this is a multi-phase program. But coming back to the maintenance, so in stage one, that's going to be addressed. So how do you maintain a trail, 10-mile trail like this, right? Who's responsible? And what we've been told by HDR is that we have 6 landowners, and all of them need to come to the table and to discuss this issue, and then make decisions on who's going to take care of what part of the trail, as well as if they don't want to physically be involved, are they willing to pay another agency to do part of it? But it's a discussion item that's going to get discussed in the first phase, or in the stage one. That's it. Thanks.
Hello, Assembly members. My name is Steve Paulson. I am also an ITN board member. I just want to give you a little more information on the ATIP grant. Okay, so I want to be completely transparent. ITN paid HDR Incorporated as an engineering firm $25,000 to pursue this grant for us. We thought these people are really good. We looked at their background, we talked with them, we have a local representative here, and we were pleased to contract with them. Their outstanding work was done on that grant application. $25,000 is well spent if you can gain $1.3 million from it, and we fully expect to. They do lots of grants, they do lots of construction, and we are told that our grant is very, very competitive. We honestly, you know, through the local support that we got, we surprised them. They were kind of blown away by the amount of local support that we got. I want to mention that at the city council meeting, we had only one council member actually go against the vote to give us the $251,000. One of the other council members mentioned that, you know, we've been to a lot of meetings. We've made lots of presentations. There was probably 25 people in that small room down the hall in support of our efforts. And one of the assembly members mentioned, okay, but we have not heard from one person who is against this. So everybody we've talked to is for it, okay? Everybody is for it. And we want to look for more letters of support. We can get them. We can probably get 100, 200. You know, you don't want to inundate the readers of that grant with too much stuff. But anyway, I would like to make that grant application available to you for an incredible amount of information to educate you on what it is we're looking for and how we plan to do it. If that's amenable to you, I think we just missed an opportunity on the 19th as part of the package to give you that information. But ITN would like to make that available to you to take a look at. It's about 30 pages, and then there's probably another 50 pages of appendices and so forth.
That can be presented to the clerk, and she can get it to us.
Will do.
Thank you.
Will do. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else from the group?
Borough Mayor, Borough Assembly. My name is Michelle Weekly. I have hiked the trails of Kodiak Island for 42 years. And several years ago, I joined the Board of Directors for Island Trails Network because I am passionate about the environment and about the health of our community. This is going to be the emotional plea. We have so much support verbally and in written letters. This is a non-motorized trail that will help anybody with all abilities, old people, people with babies and strollers, bike riders, people with disabilities. And it's just so important. It's a non-polluting trail, and it gives, and it's healthy, and it's exercise, and I think it's going to be a big draw to more members of our community and maybe people outside the community. So I would urge you to add the Kodiak Short Trail to the CIP list. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, one of the things that I've heard is that you're looking for a letter of support. Is that correct?
We have a letter of support from the manager, thank you.
Okay, just verifying.
And she told me, you guys are 100% in support. No, she didn't. But
She knows better.
yeah. Any questions?
No? Anyone? Oh, Brian?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I do have one question. Before I ask that, I do want to let you guys know I think this is a great idea. My concern also from an environmental standpoint is, and I know that we're answering questions during this phase, and I don't need an answer necessarily right now, but one thing that I would love to know is a biological survey, if that's in the plan to be
yes.
conducted.
We have to do NEPA and everything, but we don't have to do that at this, so NEPA has a clock, you know that. So
I do. Yep.
It's not, we don't start that clock in this 30% planning, but
Okay.
they are, because it's Alaska DOT and it's federal money, it's under all the rules. Is that close enough to your answer? It's got all the rules.
If you could just
I'll look it up.
Yeah, biological survey.
Thank you.
That would be great.
Yep, we'll check.
Larry and then Bo.
You know, just listening to the presentation makes me think about sort of the Kodiak that I grew up in before state money rolled in and they did everything and we just accepted money instead of picking up shovels and, you know, doing things. And there were a lot of things that went on without state and federal money in the old days. And it's nice to see a broad range of our community coming together to really work hard to make something happen. And I certainly, as a citizen and probably as an assembly member, want to support that. And I think our community needs that kind of collaboration. One of the things that came to my mind as I, read through your statement is that the suicide rate among military personnel is extremely high. Very often you hear about something in Anchorage at the Army and Air Force bases and Fairbanks. And, you've been in, coming to Kodiak, you and your husband, and it gets pretty lonely. And we've lost, some of our military personnel in Kodiak through suicide in other areas and mental issues. And to me, one of the biggest assets of this, it connects the military to the possibility where they can get out on their own and do things. And I'm not sure it's really highlighted. I know you talk about mental health, but I mean, just to support our military personnel, I'm very surprised that the military in Kodiak isn't, and maybe they are, excuse me, I don't mean to say they're not, but it would seem that Homeland Security, which I believe monitors the Coast Guard, would want to be very involved in anything that would improve the quality of life and the mental fitness of our personnel and their families. And this goes right by there and connects them and provides an opportunity for people that don't want to hike in the woods, if you will, to get out and go. And I don't know how the borough can support because the budget is complicated and it's already done, but I think it's certainly worthwhile for us to pursue being a part of this in recognition of the borough's, one of their responsibilities is Parks and Rec, and I noticed that a number of the speakers give their time on the Parks and Rec committee, and this is a priority. So I hope that under our powers of Parks and Rec, we can find some way to support this, and even though it's sort of out of this cycle, that's an excuse we can use for almost anything, but I sometimes think we need to try to find different ways to accomplish a goal than what we've always done in the past. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm very, very supportive. I don't think I'm as supportive of city support, but I think it's a great thing that you're trying to do, and it will improve the quality of life, and that's part of our responsibility. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry. What is that? We'll be back. So don't worry about the cycle, all right?
It's a many-year project.
We will be back, absolutely, and we are very much in communication with the Coast Guard. Because that's actually where my heartstrings started getting pulled when they put in the housing, is like, those people, they can't get across the highway. So that is what we're hoping, is to working with DOT to find a way that 11, 12-year-old or older can go play with their friends. They can get to Peterson. So Safe Routes to School is a big part of this. I think we're one of the first Safe Routes to School. What's the project that we're doing with the, anyway, DOT says we're one of the first projects that they're working with. So we are very much involved with the Coast Guard and working to help some of their problems, when they're problems, they're not problems, obstacles. Really cool news, though, is because years ago, I thought, when I wanted to start doing this with shovels, the command, during a tsunami evacuation, the Coast Guard command is supposed to go up to Aviation Hill. I says, wouldn't you like to be able to hoof it up there if there's a traffic jam? So that is a big push as a tsunami evacuation for the Coast Guard command to get up to Aviation Hill during a tsunami. So that's pretty cool. So we're using that.
Bo.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I don't know how many you can answer, but I think the benefits are clear to me as well. I don't know where to start. So I'll start with, just to make sure I have all the information, the current grant you're applying for would be for roughly $1.25 million, and that will only get you to the 30%?
Correct. The way that you do this is first part of the project is for 30% planning, then 65% of planning, then you go on to full and construction.
Okay, so
From
what is?
this is what someone told me. Several people have told me, so.
So what is the plan for generating funding for the remaining stages for the planning process? And the reason I ask is, if 1.25, granted, you're looking for in-kind contributions for that, but for the remaining funding that'll be needed, we're looking at several $1 million
Yes.
most likely. Are you looking to apply to grants for
Oh,
those
yeah.
as well, or are you
Yeah.
going to rely on?
Well, we are actually just finished one finish line, and we are having our Gatorade and getting ready for a shower. We have lists of many, many grants that we want to pursue. Yeah, I think that is, and this grant, from what DOT people have said, should continue for several years. That's what we're hoping for, this type of grant, especially if we get the 30%, then they know our name, then we can keep going. So those are the two of my answers that I can tell you. We are pursuing lots of grants.
May I follow up? Go ahead. And then, so I'm just trying to think of long-term what the total cost or what the ask would be from the borough. That way I have a better idea of what support looks like. I mean,
Yeah.
the letter of support's one thing, but once
Right.
we start talking costs, that's a totally different animal there. And so you would be seeking, most likely, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but ITN would be seeking continued support through in-kind contributions throughout the planning process. Is that, do I
Yes.
understand that correctly?
Yes.
And then,
In kind throughout for future portions, right? Is that what
Right.
you're saying? Yeah, yeah.
and then once, let's say everything goes great and you reach the construction part of the process, would that be a similar scenario where you're looking to fund it primarily with grant funding or
Oh,
federal
yes.
funding?
Oh, yes. This is a big benefit for the community. It doesn't mean it's not going to cost us anything.
I know,
But
I'm
we
just-
want
it's-
to
it's-
do as much work as we can to alleviate that. to-
Right, I'm
to-
just-
To find other monies. Like I said, they are building bike paths all over the state and below.
No,
We just want to be part of it.
I agree with you.
This guy
It's-
knows more.
It's a great project. I'm just trying to think about what we're gonna ask of
Yep.
our citizens in the borough, what we're gonna ask them to contribute, because this comes out of people's pockets. And if the planning phase is gonna be likely several $1 million, the construction cost is likely gonna be exponentially higher than that. So I'm just not sure of what support's gonna look like yet. But I do think it's a great project, but I think it's important for all of us to do our due diligence and make sure the community understands what we're committing them to when we say we support this project.
So I'm going to just follow up with that question. So we are talking to HDR and DOT and asking those questions because everybody needs to know the cost, right? That's just part of any program. And so we don't know the answer right now, but we're going to get it for you.
Just the first phase. Anything else, Bo?
No, thank you.
Larry?
Just a quick comment. When I first moved to North Star as principal, the borough built North Star where it is without anything connecting to it. I will say against the advice of the mayor at that particular spot. But we had a very dangerous road coming up Antone and going around a curve, and it was really bad, and with the ice and cars, if you've ever been there. And we said we need to do something, and they said you couldn't do it. And the PTA ladies got together, and Captain Miller, retired captain, and they got $1 million grant, something that no one believed would ever happen, and they got $1 million and rebuilt that whole connection and made it safe for kids. And I would say, too, that I've worked with federal grants for a long time, multi-million-dollar grants, and when you just have an idea, they go, oh, okay, another idea or another grant. But when you can come to them with a plan and money and ending, I would say that most trails, like when you come down towards Seward, you see nothing but these beautiful trails out in the middle of nowhere. Those weren't built by Seward or the Kenai Borough. They were built by the state.
By the state.
And once you have a plan, and so many projects don't happen, so many dreams in our community and others, just because they look at the money and they stop. There's lots of money there. I just got notified of a multi-million-dollar teacher housing grant program that's available, within a couple, anyway, but there's lots of money out there, and if we can get a plan done, then the opportunity of having somebody who has the money, not the borough, I think will be really high. But you got to start with the plan. It's a big deal.
Any further questions? Ryan?
So I also am very excited about this. I think this is a great program. I don't know if many people know, but I'm involved very heavily with the paintball field that's out there on Natives Kodiak land. And I stood that program up so that there was something for kids to do. And there was a lot of skepticism and a lot of naysayers when I started that, and I asked for no funding from anyone. And our initial costs were substantial, but in the first year of operations, we had several thousand contacts come through there. So I'll just reemphasize the military support. USO stood by that program and helped pay for the USOs, the soldiers to come out there, Coast Guard, active duty. And that has been extremely beneficial. We've had several people that have essentially dedicated their weekends now to that field. And I think that you'll find the same thing happens when this trail is established. I think that you're going to find a tremendous amount of people to help volunteer for maintenance, to help trail grooming. Just in the single year that we've been doing this, we had over 4,000 hours of volunteer hours on that paintball field. We shaved trees up 6 feet so no one could skewer themselves on branches, removed tripping hazards and obstacles on a 5-acre plat, and it was phenomenal. And so I think that you're going to find the same thing, and I really do believe that this is something that the town needs. And when the time arrives for environmental help, you have it locally here. So, but thank you very much. I support this.
James?
Let's see, how do I put this? Well, you could take, since our next topic is nonprofit funding, you could take some of that nonprofit funding, and I did a little bit of math. 70% stays in the nonprofit funding as it is, with some changes to everybody's different budget, and then you take 30% and you put it towards the short trail, which comes to a sum of, at 270, that comes to $81,000 in funding for this, if you guys are interested in funding it. That way you don't mess with the budget at all, and it comes straight out of nonprofit.
Thank you, James. Scott?
Usually when we do the CIP list, we have numbers.
Yeah.
So that's something that you're going to have to get before we do that. I think the CIP list is the right place to go with this. My understanding is we already have the needs that you have covered already between the state and city and citizens that have contributed. So we don't have to dive into the nonprofit money just yet. I think we can easily put a letter of support in at this point and factor in to our budget discussions starting next winter, stuff for you guys as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Amy's already done the letter of support for the borough, so that's already done. James?
So when we were doing our fiscal year 25 budget, there was a large sum that was put into Parks and Rec that was taken out during the budget discussion that could have easily gone towards this project.
Need more information before it's appropriate to do that, but time will tell. This is a multi-year project. It's not a one-time thing, so there'll be other opportunities, and plenty of them too over the years, just like Anchorage has done for the last 50 years. So with that, we'll go ahead and end. I want to thank you all for coming, and we'll be seeing you again in the future.
Great.
So, thank you.
so much.
Next item is continuation of the FY 2025 nonprofit funding discussion. Dave, staff report.
Well, first of all, I don't know where you want to start. There's multiple things here. The one thing I would like to point out is that there is a spreadsheet. There is a designation for 2 late submissions, which you're aware of, which was the Kodiak Library and the History Museum. Those were the 2 late applicants. There is a mistake in the CANA line that says $5,000. That's actually $17,700. So at the bottom, the overall total, instead of $33,780, is $349,950, taking into consideration that $17,700, and that is typically what's described in here as infant learning program and WIC. So that is divided up into multiple things for CANA, not just one thing. There's multiple items within that. Also, information I was given today is that the Independent Living Center did not expend all their grant funds last year, and they will be returning some of that balance to the borough. As part of their reporting, were supposed to, expend all of those funds, and that was not done this past fiscal year, so there are some monies coming back there. And then I think this is going to go into the question, I believe you're going to go into the discussion about the potential use of opioid funds. So I think you guys have to kind of lead where we're going first, if that's okay with you.
Okay. Ryan had his hand up first, and then Scott.
Thank you. So I'm glad that we talked about that you brought up the opioid funds right now. I originally spent a whole lot of time reading what the applicability was for the expenditures of those funds, and then I took a step back and realized that our entire application process didn't include that. And I actually think that it would be unfair to utilize or look at those funds for distribution in this cycle after the application period closed. And what I would ask is that we consider taking those that we feel would be qualified to receive those funds and specifically having them apply for those funds out of that fund account itself and withdraw next year,
Right.
withdraw from this funding request. That would be my suggestion.
I agree with that. Dave, you got a comment?
Well, I have a couple
Then
of
Scott.
comments, if I may. First of all, if you look at the spreadsheet, currently there's $87,140 is what is there. Some of these funds, and I don't know, I think you have the opioid settlement spreadsheet. I think that was in your packet.
Somewhere.
So you'll notice that there's a large amount in a couple of these. So in the Janssen, that is a prepaid amount. So the first time that these settlements are done, that organization can make a larger settlement payment, but there is no guarantee what the payments are going to be from there on. So this is sort of a one-time funding deal, and you have to remember that. So Kroger has no agreement, so consequently you'll see no funds here from Kroger, so you don't know what that is. So the 20,000 from Walmart, the 10,000 from, 27,000, excuse me, from Janssen, that explains those 2 items.
Dave, what page of the packet is that on?
Scott, I don't know that I follow the thing the same way you do. It's
Okay. I'm just looking.
I actually have paper.
Me too. But I think you have a little more paper than I
Well,
have.
notes on my sheet because I did several conversations with folks to have a little bit more information here tonight.
Okay, because we did have some at a previous, but I'm not finding it in there.
So the other thing that I think that I need to express with Dora is if and when you start distributing this money, you truly need to consider having an MOU with the organization and an absolute airtight reporting, because this is going to be an accounting nightmare if you don't do that. It's probably going to be a little bit of a nightmare anyway, but you definitely need to have some type of written agreement and some rules for reporting when you go to distribute these funds.
Okay, Scott, you had a comment. Okay.
Yeah, I talked to my wife, who is a bit of an expert about the ILP, the Infant Learning Program in Canna, and it's a big deal. And apparently makes huge progress with infants and the youngsters, teaching them how to learn, essentially. This is especially important in homes that have difficulties in that time, drug homes, etc. There's quite a bit of that in town, and this really helps. That number that they requested, $17,770, is up there with the kind of numbers that the Senior Center and Salvation Army and Brother Francis are asking for. And I think we should seriously think about funding them to at least the tune of $15,000, if not the full $17,770. In my run-through of all of the nonprofits, I ended up not trying to hassle out the differences in the $5,000 categories and trying to understand what they were trying to do with the money. And I was more generous than others. My final tally came out at $9,000 more than what we had set aside. That's not a whole lot of money, and it's certainly covered by general funds and the difference between the 9.0 and 9.25 mill rate. Thank you.
Bo?
Thank you. I like Mr. Sherritt's idea on how to approach this, and I agree with Mr. Conrad on kind of just making sure that we're within the scope of work or if that's not the appropriate term, but for those funds. I would like to see them used sooner, but I agree with both of you guys on how to approach that. That seems appropriate to me. I do not support, when that comes around, displacing funds. I want it to be in addition to what we have for nonprofit funding. I feel we are not scaling with inflation. Every other part of our community is doing so and making their requests. Why would we not apply the same logic to nonprofit funding, which also benefits our community? So when those funds are available, I would like to see them be in addition to what we currently have budgeted. I will likely not be here when the voting happens on this, so I will put my support on Mr. Griffin's proposed budget for nonprofits. It seems the most equitable balance from what was asked and what is available. So if I am not here, that's where I stand. Although the proxy vote is not an option. However, I support Mr. Griffin's proposal, being it seems to be the most equitable.
Okay, thank you, Bo. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, the only other item I wanted to share is that when you do decide, it would be highly advisable to utilize the Exhibit E, and you have A through L, I believe, items that denote what these can be used for. So that's a guideline for how those monies can be appropriately applied to the organizations that you're considering. Those have been provided by through the courts. And if you stay with that, then you'll stay within the parameters, and it'll make reporting a lot easier.
Ryan?
And to that same tune, which is one of the major decisions why I don't believe we should fund through this right now, is if we correctly construct the grant program in adherence and use Exhibit E with indemnification to the borough, I think that will, at least from a liability standpoint, make me feel much better about how those funds are distributed and put the onus of responsibility on those receiving the funds. As I read down this, I had to look at several terms, and I would say that I'm fairly versed in the scientific jargon, and so I wouldn't expect our staff to become experts in compliance for the distribution of these funds, which is really that stopping point for me. So again, if we construct this correctly, put the onus on the receiver of the funds and indemnification of the borough, I think that'd be the way to do the settlement funds next iteration of this. I just want to address Mr. Whiteside's comments. When I suggested removing the applicants from the general pool, I definitely did not mean to withdraw the funds either. I agree with Mr. Whiteside that our nonprofit funding is low in comparison to what our revenues are. And philanthropy is a big part of socioeconomic success in a society. And I think that we need to do a better job of giving to those nonprofits. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Larry?
We had some discussion over nonprofits relative to the challenges of our community related to drug addiction or alcohol addiction have increased. I think we all agree on that. And the amount of money that we've appropriated or been able to appropriate has been declining from sometimes of what we've done in the past. And the opportunity to address the addiction problems in Kodiak and the treatment and the intervention, we have an opportunity here. And as I look at some of the areas that we heard from directly related to the opioid settlement, and you could stretch things, there's a lot of movement there, what you could do. But CAMP, Salvation Army with what they do with treatment, the Women's Crisis Center are directly related to addiction and the effects of addiction in our community. And I think that's what this money is all about. I don't think, as one of the assembly members mentioned, that we should use it to replace money. I think the needs of our community are extreme. I know that from my work with the school district, how it affects kids. It's just incredible what's going on and what teachers are seeing, the effect on kids in our community. It's a real problem. And if we have the opportunity to increase support, I think everybody during the presentations were touched by the presentations of people who appreciate what's been going on. And I think we've given them the minimum, and I think with the opioid settlement, we have a chance to add to that and be a part of a solution. I don't really like waiting because the problem's not going to get any better if we don't do anything right now. It'll be just worse. So if we have the money available and we know where the need is and the community has told us where the need is, then I think we should respond. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, well, this will be on the agenda for the regular meeting next Thursday. Thank you. Next item is discuss various funding sponsorships, the MB Tustamina 60th Anniversary, Alaska Municipal League, AML Conference, and Kodiak Economic Development sponsorship proposals. I guess let me see what's in my final here. In talking with Nova and talking with Louise Stutz yesterday and talking with Alaska Municipal League also today, what we have is talked with Louise and told her that basically what we have budgeted is $3,000 for the year, and it's only July, and we've got multiple requests, and I asked her if $1,000 would work, and she said yes, she could make that work. And if she also said that because she's had some other efforts there that people are contributing, so her request is $1,000 for that. Then she also said that if there was any funds not expended, it would be returned to the borough on there. So, and she's overseeing that. Then on Alaska Municipal League and Kodiak Economic Development, Kodiak Economic Development is asking for sponsorship of Alaska Municipal League. And I have a problem when we're a host city, we need to be doing that directly. And so reached out to Alaska Municipal League, and basically what they've said would help them is $1,000, and that would sponsor the the coffee and that during their convention here. So, so I'm suggesting that we not contribute to Kodiak Economic Development, and I'm not sure exactly what the city is doing, but they've always done something too. I've not experienced Alaska Municipal League being here in since 1918, excuse me, 2018, 2018, thank you. Well, that woke everybody up. I'm glad.
More fodder for Ryan.
Yeah. So, what, the old age part? Fooled them. So, anyway, want to hear what the rest of you think. Told Louise that since this was the first of the year, I probably figured she'd be back sometime during the rest of the fiscal year, because she's usually pretty vocal about getting other groups here and asking for support. So, James, and then Jared?
So I'm in favor of the 1,000 to the 60th anniversary, and also 1,000 to Alaska Municipal. I do think that 1,000 should come out of our travel budget for the assembly, since we don't have to travel to this particular meeting. So
That's a different interpretation. But I can understand it. So, James, now Jared, and then Scott.
Yes, I'm also in support of the $1,000 for the 60th anniversary. Who is the check written to?
Louise.
So I just want to make sure all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, because it is an election year and it is close to an election, and a governing body writing a check to a legislative candidate for this. I just want to make sure it's
Yeah, we did.
everything's above board and we're all good there. I don't want to hurt Louise, don't want to hurt us.
It's what we
just
did
wanna-
last year, too, so I didn't figure.
Well, it wasn't an election year quite,
It's
so.
always an election year.
Well, not for Louise.
Every 2
But,
years, so you're always running.
So that check we wrote last year was directly to Louise? Okay.
Nova.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that check was written to Nunyak directly
Oh,
to
for
the
the-
vendor. Yep, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that correction on there.
Okay.
Anything else, Jared, or?
And then, I like James's idea about the $1,000 for AML. And I also have concerns about the KEDC. They're sponsoring a breakfast, but they're asking for people to sponsor their sponsorship. I think we, can focus our honorariums to the AML.
Directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott?
I'm in favor of both. I thought the $1,000 is just fine for Louise and Tustamena. I agree that it should come out of the travel budget for AML. I see no reason not to, since none of us are traveling to it. I do have to say that for first timers, it's important that you go to this. It's a really crucial thing. That's in December though, isn't it?
No, it's August. Here.
I know it's August now, but
Oh,
first time thing is in
yes. Newly elected.
But it's still important to stay in touch with AML. There's all kinds of good stuff going on. Thank you.
Larry and then Ryan?
I am very satisfied with the mayor's proposal as given. I also support the travel budget, because we don't know what needs will come up in the year, and makes a lot of sense. And I just want to take the opportunity to, support what Louise has done, because I really believe without her efforts in this area, we wouldn't have
wouldn't
a
happen.
ferry to be talking about. And so I appreciate her taking the leadership to do this, and I suspect it will have statewide ramifications. And So I think it's a good thing to do, and I really like the idea of us writing our own check. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
Thank you. I also agree that the funding for the MV Tustamina is important. If she'll take $1,000, that's great. I echo Jared's concerns regarding writing a check directly to an individual. This is over the $600 amount, and by law, we would need to issue a 1099 NEC to her. So if we're prepared to do that, and she's prepared to receive that, then I think everyone should know what that looks like. I do have a different opinion on the AML, though. I don't believe that we should fund the AML, and I guess I'll go a little deeper than probably I need to. So it's my understanding with the Alaska Municipal League that we, as a member, pay our membership dues, and not only do we pay our membership dues, we also, when they champion efforts for a community, they often ask for those efforts to be monetized. I'll just use COVID funds for an example. So I'm aware, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, I'm aware that the Alaska Municipal League received money from COVID funding from both the city and the borough. Can anybody back that up?
I'm not aware of that.
I'm not either.
Okay, so in a report that I had read that is publicly available,
Yeah.
that COVID funds, and maybe Nova, you can look into that and see if COVID funds were indeed put back into Alaska Municipal League for those championing of those efforts. And if I'm wrong, I'll absolutely own it. So as far as the Alaska Municipal League is concerned, I just don't believe that we should support the funding for it. If we're a host town, they should be hosting in membership towns. I think that we only have $3,000 in this account, and if we want to spend 66% of that in the first month, I think that's we should either spend it all in the first month so we can decline everybody else, or realize that there's going to be some pretty serious or consequential discussions about the remaining $1,000 in this fund, and everyone's going to have a difference of opinion of what those funds should be spent on. In the event that we do move forward with the funding on it, I do agree that it should come out of a travel budget, and that reduces the 66% spend down to 33. So anyway, that was my 2 cents. I appreciate it.
Bo and then Scott?
Thank you. I agree with some other folks who mentioned the optics behind giving this money, and not to, I don't know, not to imply, but the person did ask for it directly. I'm not comfortable with a check to any individual for supporting the 60th anniversary of the Tusty. I am supportive of contributing funds, but I would like to see that go to directly to a vendor in the community, not to any individual of the community. I think the optics are very poor there, and I'm sensitive to even just the optics, whether it was true or not, of quid pro quo and pro quo. Support the idea, support the $1,000. I would like to see it go directly to a vendor in the community. AML, I agree with Mr. Sherritt. That feels like a double dip to me. However, if that decision is made and I am not present during that, I think Mr. Turner's idea, I certainly support that. If we are going to agree, if we have a majority agreeing that those funds are appropriate, or that amount is appropriate, I would like to see it come from the travel fund as well. But currently, I do not support using those funds for that either. KEDC, I agree. If funding comes through, it should not be routed. There's no reason to me to route those through that organization. Given if the borough, I agree with the mayor, that if we're going to support it, we should support it directly. There's no need to have a pass-through for those funds.
Thank you. Scott and then James.
I was just remembering the discussions that we had regarding COVID funds. As I recall, we didn't spend COVID money on anything at first, trying to figure out what we could spend it on. and there was a lot of dialogue about that. I don't recall spending any COVID money on AML at all. It seemed like it was against the rules when we heard about it. There were others that were doing that. Go ahead.
I will have a conversation with Dora about this, and we'll confirm that. She can tell us exactly. That's the appropriate place to ask the question.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Scott?
No.
James?
So I don't think that, I should restate that. I think there's enough comment tonight about giving the check directly to Louise, but I don't think it would be, I think that Louise would probably give us a vendor that she's planning
She
on
can come
sending
up
it
with
to,
something.
whether it be one of the stores here in town.
Or
I
multiple.
think that's easy enough, and then we can write the check to whatever facility that is, and I think that would help out.
We'll discuss it with her and work out something. Jared?
Just a quick question of clarification. Isn't the city of Kodiak is technically the host municipality, right? We didn't submit a co-hosting application. It's really the city who's the hosting application, right? Or hosting municipality. Okay.
Any further discussion? Then, moving on to packet review. First one is resolution number FY 2023-03C, a resolution of the Assembly of the Kodiak Island Borough amending various sections of the Kodiak Island Borough Records Retention Schedule and a central filing system to reflect amendments to the Assessing Department, Community Development Department, and Contracts Records Series in the Clerk's Office. Staff report, Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've been working on our retention schedule since I got back to the borough. So far, we have done the clerk series, the election series, we have done the finance series, and now we're working, we have before you the assessing department series and community development series, and also we're making a change to the contracts series in the clerk's office. So this is before you. We've worked on this for, I would say, about 5-6 months, so it's now ready for prime time. We've worked with the department, closely with the department directors and also with the borough attorney.
Ryan?
Can you help me understand when you say the contract series, what contracts are included in that?
All the contracts. all
Every
borough
contract
contracts,
binding
yes.
the borough to something?
Yes, including agreements and leases and MOUs, MOAs, and sometimes there's even procurement contracts.
Can I continue?
Go ahead.
And so are you monitoring contracts in or are you retaining contracts in accordance with statute of limitations?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? Thank you, Nova.
You're welcome.
Let's see what else comes up. Next is resolution number FY 2025-3, a joint resolution of the Kodiak Island Borough Assembly and the City Council appointing a member to the Kodiak Fisheries Development Association's Board of Directors Crab Processors Representative, and this is Mr. Tuck Bonney. Nova,
Yes.
is that you too?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we have a joint fisheries development association, and we have 2 borough appointees, and Jerry Bongan, is that how you pronounce his last
Right.
name? We have reached out to him. He said that he can't commit on serving on this committee anymore, so we've been advertising for that seat. But we have reached out to Mr. Tuck Bonney, and he said that he's willing to serve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we move on to resolution number FY 2025-4, resolution of the Assembly of the Kodiak Island Borough, allocating fiscal year 2025 Kodiak Island Borough nonprofit funding. And we've gone over that, and we will address that by a vote next Thursday. Dave?
Is there any desire to update spreadsheets or anything like that? Anyone have another submission? We have,
I might, because mine didn't include the History Museum and the Genetic Library, so.
okay, as I
mine
recall, a majority were leaning towards
Something there.
Mr. Griffin's version, or sort of, I just want to make sure that there's like, we're not going to get this 11th hour, ooh, here's another one kind of thing.
Oh, that can happen.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to like be a forward thinker here, sorry.
Larry?
I'm a little troubled with, and this has nothing to do with the organizations, with allowing people to apply that didn't apply on time. There may be organizations that for many good reasons did not apply because they were late and they thought there was a deadline. They didn't know that there really is no deadline. And if we're going to have a deadline and we're going to allow people to do it whenever they want, what is the deadline? And it just doesn't make any sense to me. We either have a deadline or we don't. And again, this isn't about the organizations. It's about, it's how we used to treat senior citizens that were applying for the waiver. We would say, oh, you passed the deadline, and now we have no deadline. And again, so I'm going to vote no, simply because I know I'll be in a minority, but if we have a deadline, we should have a deadline. And I know that when I've written grants, multi-million-dollar grants, they make it really clear. If you're 1 minute late, tough. You know, and I was never late.
Next year.
I was never late, you know, for that reason. And I am troubled that we tell organizations that we have a deadline, and good reasons. I'm not questioning that. I'm not questioning the organizations, but we may have people out there that were late that didn't apply because they were late. And it's almost like we need to say, all right, we're having another opening, and then if we had another opening, are we going to stand by it or not? So this is flawed, and I believe it's treated by the community as arbitrary, meaning we have rules, but we don't follow them. And when it's arbitrary, the public doesn't trust us. On the other hand, sometimes we have to do the right thing, even if it's not right, if you will, in terms of our policies. So I just want to go on record that I just think this is really wrong.
You have opportunity next Thursday, too.
I will take it. Thank you.
James and then Ryan.
I want to say thank you for that. That was my attitude last year, and it failed, just like you're saying it's going to fail.
Might not.
I will stand by that. I will be submitting a new one now that I hear that somebody else is in the same mindset.
Thank you. Ryan?
Well, you guys are jerks. No, actually, Mr. Ledoux, you bring up a very valid point. I agree with you, and I appreciate that perspective. And I will also stand by that as well. So again, I appreciate that perspective, and as the spreadsheet was updated 15 July, I would still lean toward Mr. Griffin's as listed on this spreadsheet with no values in the late filers. Thank you.
James and then Bo.
So I guess I should have asked this early on, but that discrepancy of 5,000 versus 17,770, was that a mistake on the borough's behalf, or was that on the a mistake on the application?
It appears to me that it's a mistake on the boroughs, because the application shows several different programs and where they were going to apply that money. I would suggest that perhaps you take a minute and look at the various categories, because that 17.7 could vary depending on your opinion and where you want to place funds.
Thank you.
Bo.
Thank you, and I also agree with Mr. Ledoux and encourage everyone to apply that logic universally, including making judgments when people uphold deadlines and application periods. So if we're going to stand firm and make these kind of statements, they should be applied universally, including any criticism for those who we are asking to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, Dave.
Since Amy is out, I would volunteer to be the recipient of proposed future budgets so they can be prepared for next week in a timely manner.
Okay. Thank you. Next is ordinances for introduction. Ordinance number FY 2025-4, an ordinance of the Assembly of the Kodiak Island Borough amending Kodiak Island Borough Code Title II, Administration and Personnel, Chapter 2.40 Records Management, Sections 2.40.150 and 2.40.160 to allow exemptions for the disposal of records that have administrative value. Staff report, Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To keep it short, currently our code doesn't allow us to over-retain records. At first, we started with just the contracts as we were destroying contracts going back to many, many years of contracts. The manager raised the flag and said, she would like to at least keep a few of the contracts for reference and for administrative values. So we started that conversation, and it seems like there's also a desire from other department directors to keep some of the records that they may have in their departments, to keep those records for maybe historical value or administrative value as they're working on other projects. So we worked again with our attorney on this, and we found a way to revise the existing code, to allow the manager and the department directors to fill out a form that says we would like to retain this record for another 5 years. And then if they want to extend that, then they're going to need to fill out another form to extend. But every time they do, they need to give us a valid reason for us to extend those records. So that's basically the gist of it.
Dave and then Ryan.
I would like to hear what Mr. Sherritt has.
Okay, Ryan.
So specifically, my note says, can we hold and retain facility contracts for 25 years? So facility contracts, at least in my opinion, are crucial to future planning, understanding what has gone on with projects and facilities. And I would not like to see a facility contract held within the statute of limitations. In the state of Alaska, it's 8 years on a project contract like that. And so I think that facility contracts need to specifically be called out. In my opinion, I think that called out is a 25-year period.
Okay. Dave.
Well, okay, you're in my head, and I agree with you 100%, and especially when it comes to, and I will give a specific example, we're in the middle of, looking at leases for GSA leases for KFRC and things of that nature. And there has been such dramatic changes in 25 years. We need to be able to approve unfunded mandates. We need to be able to approve things like that. And also, it's not a bad thing to go back, and sometimes original language is better than language that has evolved over the years. So I am right behind Amy on this one, and I totally agree with everything Mr. Sherritt said.
The only thing I wonder is that lease is already 25 years plus, and is 25 years enough? Would be
Well, every 5 years, you can ask for this to be retained. Yeah.
Okay. I can live with that, 50. That's right. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? Thank you, Nova. Other items is State of Alaska Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office restaurant or eating place license renewal application for Sizzler Burger and Peking Restaurant, license number 2611, combined renewal notice. Staff report, Nova.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly. So we have gone through our process of investigation, and there were a few concerns or interests that were brought up during that investigation, and they were listed in the packet. We have community development commenting about conformity with regulations, specifically zoning regulations and zoning compliance. The fire marshal, there is a need to conduct a fire and life safety inspection. And also building official, the business location has been gutted by the building owner without any permits. There is belief that the business has not been in operation for 2 years. There's also concern that the application may not have been filled out correctly because the address for the restaurant still 116 West Westnorth Drive, and it's non-existent in that location. So there are a few concerns, and also the city of Kodiak, I have learned that they are objecting also for unpaid taxes. So there's just quite a few issues here that are going on that I, as a clerk, normally after I've done my investigation, I just voice non-objection and not present it to the Assembly. But this time, I think the concerns are legitimate, and I would like to give you the opportunity to review it and let me know how you would like to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry?
I just have a question, and again, I'm going way back in the past. Is there a number that's allowable licenses for alcohol, serving alcohol?
There was, but then under the new rules, the city applied here this year for 10 additional ones in the community.
Yeah, the only concern I had is this place has been closed for a long time, and I just wondered if this application was just an attempt to hold on to a license at the extent of another business that can't open one because it's being held by a company that is not in business.
Under the old rules, there's that possibility, and they may not understand the new rules.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Oh, I'm sorry. I had you.
No, you're good. No problem. I had the same question as Mr. Ledoux. Just wanted to make sure that this wouldn't have, well, I guess to front load, I agree with, I would object to that renewal nonetheless, but especially if it would displace that permit for another business that did have plans to operate.
Any further comments? Seeing none. Next item is managers' comments. Dave?
Well, thank you very much. I revised the report from last week. We discussed the opioid class settlement, so I think that's done. Amy had gone through a bunch of this, so I'll kind of do the abbreviated version here. Community development, we have the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update is out and available at the website, and we would encourage folks to do 30-day comment during the 30-day comment period. The hazard mitigation advanced assistance grant for hydrology study is due date for study proposals is August 2nd, so we will be reviewing the submitted proposals. There are multiples that have been approved by DHSEM for allowable for submission. Assessing is continuing to do their field work. 195 properties seen as of July 23rd, a whole lot more to go. 15 applicants remain to be determined by PFD and will be processed, and this is for the SC and DV exemptions. Jumping on to, we'll go pass down to engineering. There's a flyer attached to your packet about the litter patrol. They've indicated that 160 large bags have been picked up to date, and I would encourage you to thank those folks, those young guys and gals, for helping to keep Kodiak beautiful and picking up trash. And it's extremely noticeable when they're done. So compliments to them, and also to the Assembly and also the City Council for supporting that program each year. We received all of the playground equipment for the Women's Bay Playground, and all of it appears to have come in intact. And we did our bid opening, and it appears that AIM Maintenance was the only successful bidder, or only bidder, so consequently successful. And I look forward to working with them. They've done a great job for us in the past. So hopefully we can get that thing moving and get it in the ground for folks. I will say I was quite impressed with the size of the crates we unloaded. I didn't know the stuff was that big. Sultry Cove Trail Improvement, we continue to work with that, and we have also been contacted. There's been some communication with ITN and the Borough about potentially doing additional work, and I want to be very careful and cautious about that and make sure that the proper permitting is done and not an assumption made that the permits that were in place to the original work still stand. We are out of the we're out of the anadromous work window for in-stream. Considering I'm hearing successes in reds coming into Sultry, I don't think we want to go in there and do that. So we need to express a little bit caution here and not get excited. We have been getting good reports and rapport back from folks that they really do enjoy the trail improvements that we've done out there, the crossings and whatnot. KFRC, we are having conversations with GSA. We're still awaiting fire alarm inspection and sprinkler system inspections. It's a little frustrating how long it takes GSA to get anything back to us. I have had conversations with Taylor Fire, our vendor, about trading out some dry sprinkler heads that appear to be non-functioning anymore. I authorized that verbally today. We definitely need to keep ahead of our life safety issue items. So we're also waiting for a discussion and approval of the acceptance of the decontamination system that's required over there, as well as a potential contribution for funding. And this is a direct kind of correlation to the conversation we had with Mr. Sherritt regarding retention, because of the items that have been removed and no longer supported by the major tenant. And I think that's a large consideration when it comes to the cost associated with this decontamination system. We're waiting some information, and we have a tentative meeting scheduled, and I don't remember when in August. I want to say it's around the 12th, but this is about the sterilization and steam generation at Providence and the replacement of those systems. You'll also notice that Providence is starting to work on the rust on the exterior of the entryway. They're hopefully going to get some paint on that thing here pretty quick. The weather looks like we're not going to do so well. We do have the first draft of the Phase 1 report back. The architects will be in town 14th to the 16th. We may end up requesting meeting of the Health Facilities Committee during that, if folks are available, but this is to finalize the numbers and the space requirements that are desired by the various vendors or people within the spaces. There's going to be some gains and some losses and some recommendations, but this report, we were able to extend the grant through September, so consequently our target is to have a presentation for you at the end of September on this whole topic. We do now know that ADC will be in Kodiak in the middle of September for our solid waste inspection at the landfill. We are going to advertise the floor replacement for this week. Will be out for the wear area on the concrete floor. We're going to have another styrofoam giveaway, the roof installation. That'll be this weekend, and I anticipate one more probably in about 2 weeks. It's amazing how much foam came off and how much foam went back on the Peterson roof. And folks have come and got foam, and some disappointed because it was all gone till they got there. We have hired a new baler one, and Matt will start on Friday, starts tomorrow, and he'll be doing all of his initial safety training and introduction as an employee, and then we'll ship them off to the landfill to start training. So welcome, Matt.
How do you pronounce the last name?
Hrdlicka. This is the one that Amy refused, told me I was wrong, that there were no vowels, and I was messing with her, so, but yes, and welcome, Matt. And we have confirmed our fall commercial hazardous waste event for October 1st and 2nd, and this is in the middle of the week, unlike before, and we are specifically going to be targeting commercial businesses so we can get some of these hazmats out of here. Peterson Roof, and I brought some show and tell if you don't mind. We'll start with James. So roofing screws are meant to go into your substructure to hold things down. This is just an idea. This is an insulation screw that's used to go down through the structure. When the screws penetrate your conduit like that, for both your electrical and your fire alarm system, you run into some problems. So currently, we have a fire alarm system that's non-functional. This has all been discussed with both the city as the fire marshal and also Coast Guard Fire. But we have multiple places where the screws have impinged in the conduit and compromised the conductors. We are working with the contractor and with the fire alarm contractors and electrician to get this rectified, because we do not want to affect the opening of school. We may end up having to do some fire watches when staff comes back. This cost is being borne by the contractor. So, and they are diligently working at repairing this. We will have that school ready. The substantial completion on the roof membrane, there's a couple of photographs in your packet of the new roof membrane. It is night and day compared to what there were. We believe that the only thing that will be remaining will be the coping and metal flashing. That will likely not get here and be installed by the time school starts, but it'll be completed shortly thereafter. We went through some stuff. I will hand it to Friend Contracting. They have reacted appropriately, and they have been very professional in the application of the roofing system, as well as all the extemporaneous repairs that were required due to leaks and things of that nature. East Elementary School, we had a sinkhole develop in the parking lot, and come to find out, we had the city take their vac truck over there and their Vactor and do a little bit of gravel removal to find logs 3 feet down under the parking lot. So we're going to go ahead and dig a bit larger hole as an exploration. If we're ever going to, and we seriously need to consider doing a project to repave the east parking lot, I would like to do a little destructive testing to see how much organics are underneath there, and maybe with this bit larger trench at this time, we can get an idea, because if we go to spend a few $1 million on a parking lot redo, let's not have the logs rot out from under it again. Just, again, trying to do a little forward thinking. We're waiting final shipping dates on the new pumps and impeller configurations for the leachate treatment plant. I would like to thank Louis Lasky. He has turned in his resignation after 5+ years working at the leachate treatment plant, and also started as a laborer here mowing lawns. He has been a very dependable staff member during his time, and we're going to miss him, and we wish him well in his future. Finance Department, you basically have the same items on here as last week. Dora is pulling her hair out a little bit right now with audit and cleanup of audit, so they're all plugging away, and her new staff is coming up to speed. And IT, security audit is, they are reviewing the 36 proposals, and they're going to be scored by the 1st. So shortly, you will be seeing something coming up to award that contract. They're working on power outage protocols, and we are contacting our electricians and generator installers so we can get this generator online, so that when we have power outages, we don't have to worry about battery backup. We have a generator system that will be functional and keep our systems running. Again, they're working on business continuity, disaster recovered, records management, and data management, and they're collaborating with the clerks. Both IT physical and electronic data retention policies to match state of Alaska standards. They're reviewing security systems and updating. I spoke today about potentially updating and upgrading the Wi-Fi system over at KFRC because it's currently wireless, and you can have some issues doing Zoom meetings and things of that nature, and we need to support better IT support over at KFRC facility. And our new laptops are wonderful, thank you. They're a whole lot faster and nicer than the old ones. And that's really all I have, unless there's specific questions. There's more in here. And thank you for your cooperation tonight.
Thank you. Ryan?
Yep, thank you. I've got 2 questions. Woman's Bay Playground, AIM Maintenance was the only successful bidder. Was that above 50,000 or below 50,000?
I believe it's slightly above 50,000.
So that will be coming to the assembly for approval?
Absolutely.
Okay. I guess I want to talk a little bit more about that when that comes forward. The next thing is, I had someone contact me, whatever we've done in the last 30 days in the IT department with GIS and overlays, Garmin now registers these candy cane lines over borough-owned property, and it's not an isolated incident, so I went and grabbed my Garmin, turned it on, and sure enough, it's never existed before, and these candy cane lines take away all topo features and everything else. I'm wondering if IT can look at that and see if that's something we've done. Garmin says that it is absolutely on the GIS where they pull their information from. So I'm wondering if there's something we can do to undo that. I'm surprised we haven't received more complaints, but Garmin Technical Services says it's on our end.
I'll have them look into it.
Other than that, that's it. Thank you. Good report.
Any other questions? Seeing none, next item is the clerk's.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Assembly. Elections update, so we have those 3 elections coming up, and I will keep reminding the public that nominating packets are available in the clerk's office, and they're also available for download on the Borough website. And the filing period is from August 1st through August 15. And we're putting together our team of workers. So far, we need at least 40-plus people to work the election, the local election. Today, I'm so excited, or this week, I had 2 people drop by the clerk's office, and someone sent me a text, and they're excited to work the canvas team. So far, my canvas team is formed for the election, the upcoming election. I'm really excited about that. So absentee voting for the August 20th primary election will start on August 5th through the 19th. And it will be held here in the Borough Assembly chambers. It's from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Absentee voting is different from early voting. So what we're doing is absentee voting, not early voting for the primary election. The difference between early voting and absentee voting is that early voting, they come in, they sign the register, they feed their ballot in the machine, and it's automatically counted. Absentee voting is that they have to fill out a form, and that form will be sent to the state, and it will go through Canvas. So that's the difference between absentee voting and early voting. We do early voting for local election, but not for the state election, and a lot of people get confused. So we don't want people upset that they can't early vote for the state elections. I do not have control over that. Okay. So records update, we have a lot of activities going on with records. As you see in the packet, we have the resolution, we have an ordinance. We are destroying records, we are archiving records, we have records requests coming in. And we're going to be working with IT on their revision updates and hopefully with the manager's department and then the engineering department too in the future. We have the assembly agenda item request spreadsheet attached to my report. That gives you an update where those requests are, the status of them. I have provided you where we're at on the budget. Upcoming meetings, we have the AML Summer Legislative Conference. So far, I have one assembly member that signed up to attend and the mayor also. And we are also training employees or staff members in the clerk's office. We've been attending online training, and then we have a couple of training coming up in September and also October. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to assembly member comments, and we'll start with Ryan.
I'd first like to thank those that came out to give public comment tonight. And thank you to Island Trails Network for the presentation and thoughtfulness that went into that. I know that a project with the magnitude of what we're looking at is substantial and costly, and I think that the long-term benefits, as they illustrated, it's hard to put that into association with dollar figures. Our job as we sit on this assembly is to be fiscally responsible, and I'm hopeful that during this process that the majority of the funds for that come from a grant. But I can tell you again personally, from investing my own dollars into outdoor-based activities, it pays volumes. So again, I appreciate those that come out and support. I appreciate the thorough report from the manager and from the clerk. And it's our job to have the difficult discussions. So when we talk about liquor licenses and things of that nature in your investigations, I appreciate the thoroughness that you guys put into that. It makes our decision-making process easier. However, it doesn't relieve us from our own, I guess, investigation, our own research into these as well. So I appreciate the questions that were asked. I felt everybody at the assembly tonight had very valid questions, concerns, comments, and I think that this is probably one of my favorite work sessions. So I appreciate the good dialogue. Thanks.
Scott.
I received a message from Dave Conrad and Irene about a proposal to declare Chinook salmon endangered species. There's a response by TSPA and Julie Decker there. I think you need to read this very closely. I think this is a bad idea to declare them endangered at this point. There was an attempt, I believe it was early this year, it might have been last year, to declare it and to make them the primary food of orca or something like that. And I mean, it's just bogus nonsense as far as I'm aware. And I think Julie Decker's letter is a really good one. I think the borough should sign on and we should approve a letter from the assembly. Thank you.
Larry.
Just a couple of quick things. Our discussion relative to the $1,000 contribution to the Tustamina Fund, I just want to make sure that our concerns with the payment were not directed at any ethical concerns with the request. It has to do with our operating procedures that we operate from. It has nothing to do with the request for the money. I just want to make sure that that's clear, because we do appreciate all the efforts that are going into this event, and certainly the reflection that although we haven't voted the support, we believe it's an important thing. The other thing I want to mention is that, our next scheduled borough meeting and some of our borough public meetings, if you will, and work sessions have not been very long. And, our agendas are rather attenuated to a certain extent, not for any bad reason or anything. But it seems to me that one of the things I'd like people just to think about when we have agendas that perhaps aren't very long, we have an opportunity because of our ability to communicate to the public, for those who watch it, to educate ourselves in the community with public presentations on specific topics, where we allocate a half hour for an organization. For instance, Bo spent some time in Old Harbor talking to the community. Okay. It would be really nice if, during our work sessions, if we had community meetings scheduled for Old Harbor. Not all of them, but because they're all unique and they're all different, but where we give them a chance to ask questions and tell us about their community, because they're not just telling us, they're telling the public about our community. And frankly, we have so many people that come into our town that know nothing about our rural communities. And I think it would be an opportunity. Some of the other areas I just jotted down could be a presentation on where the school district is. I mean, just the landfill. I mean, most people look at the landfill as a dump where you throw garbage, but it's one of the most sophisticated operations in our community. And just have a full presentation where we're not voting on anything, and so we have no agenda other than to educate the community about something that's very important and costs them a lot of money every month in terms of fees. Borough operations, the Homeland Security, what are we doing? Really, how is the borough involved in emergency planning during a crisis? They don't know. And we could plan these presentations, or the Borough Assembly could say, these are areas we could educate people on. And I think it would be pretty cool. And I think I would learn a lot, and other people would learn a lot. And when we don't have long meetings, it could be an opportunity that we could really connect with our community, and we can educate them and be a part of it. And I'm talking about things that are directly related to our responsibilities under state law to educate the community, and I'm really interested in opening the eyes of the community to our rich rural community and some of the values and cultures and operations and what goes on there. Finally, I just had a question for the manager, and that is, or the interim manager, if you will. Have we reviewed all of our playgrounds for safety?
No, we have not. I personally go to all of the playgrounds on a regular basis, but I believe your question is there are 3 items that are still wood, if that leads to where you're going. I also think that we need to, and we have been going around and verifying nothing is sharp, there's nothing hazardous. We're fluffing the gravel to make sure that we're safer.
Right. Well, I think it's important that we do that, because the playground that is being replaced was in such bad shape, it was not safe, according to the public testimony. But I haven't heard any advocates of the other playgrounds, and I appreciate all the work that's being done, but I hope that, we're keeping that in mind, and maybe we need to remind the Parks and Rec Committee that that's something that maybe they want to take a close look at.
And I did that at the last, and will continue to at all the Parks and Rec meetings that I attend.
And the other is just a quick question. Where are we with the Kodiak, trying to bring that building up? I know there was some contamination, and at some point we talked, and I was just hitting me, where are we with that?
We have contacted the 5th person that's assigned to the Kodiak spill since I've been involved. They are looking into it. They're looking into our plan. We believe that with the new water system that we can discuss with the ADEC the fact that we should not have to do any test wells on the downhill side of this because they do have a municipal water system, and there is no plans for drilling any wells for water drinking in the potential path of where any contamination would go. The levels were right at minimums for a not passing, or maximums for not passing, I guess you could say. So it's interpretational when it comes to what the next person or the next group at ADEC is going to decide. We've seen it go different ways, but we now have their attention again. I just wish they'd stop switching employees.
Thank you very much.
Bo.
Thank you. So first, thank you to Mr. Lasky for his service at the treatment plant, and good luck on moving on to warmer climates. And thank you to Mr. Conrad for holding down the fort in the manager's office while our manager is in a warmer climate. And thank you to the litter patrol. I wasn't aware, I see you all working hard out there. I wasn't sure if it was by force or not. I'm very glad to hear that you all are there because you want to be. And so thank you for being positive role models for other teens in the community. You are fantastic. Thank you very much for your effort.
Thank you. Jared?
Just a couple things. Just want to reiterate the importance of AML, but then even more so the Kodiak Area Leadership Institute. If you have chance to spend some time there, that's even more valuable. These are our island neighbors, and I think I get more out of those meetings. But it's also good for to attend AML, any of the conferences or institutes that they have, because you really see the scope of, the web that we are all a part of in this state, and it's kind of awe-inspiring, but inspiring too. So I would encourage both. I agree with Mr. Smiley. I don't think in regards to the kings and the proposals to designate them as an endangered species. So I throw my weight behind that too. And I agree with Larry on short meetings. I think short agendas are a good thing because it shows that how much trust we have in our staff and in our manager to take care of business. And I think that's a benefit that we get from that. So let's not waste the time that we have. And Larry's got some good ideas there. And then I've got a play this weekend with Arts Council Summer Youth Theater. So these kids have been working hard the past few weeks, and it's free.
James?
Have a good night.
Thank you. Mayor's comments, I have no further comments. Event calendar, August 13th through 15th is the Summer Legislative Conference of AML in Kodiak. And then December 9th through the 13th is the Alaska Municipal League Annual Local Government Conference in Anchorage. With that, adjourn the meeting. Thank you. And it is 8:17. She's already, we're already considering that, right? It's on the list.
Yeah.
Well, it just, then it, yeah. It starts this dumbass clock starting, that's why.